it's finally springtime and tomorrow is Easter, so, well, depending on what time zone you're in, it might already be Easter. Anyways, so I thought it'd be fun to show you sort of an Easter spring-themed breakfast thing. I mean, if you don't celebrate Easter, you can always use it as a springtime breakfast, just a special sort of springtime breakfast. Because it would be sort of a, effort to do this on a daily basis. Yep. But yeah, point is, lately I've been more into crafting. I never actually quite liked it, but I've gotten better at it somehow. So now I like it more, because that's how things work with me. So yeah, I thought it'd just be fun to show you how to do a sort of quick and easy Easter/springtime breakfast that doesn't take a lot of time or a lot of, stuff. But, it's just easy to make like a day beforehand. Yep. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it, watching it. I hope you enjoy watching it. Let's get started. So, of course, painting of eggs always starts with boiling the eggs. I don't think anyone needs explanation of that. I boiled them for about 7 to 8 minutes, I guess. Sort of, either one of those two. And then stuffed them in the fridge for about an hour, and then, took them back out to paint them. At that point they're still sort of warm, but not too hot or anything. Just perfect to start painting them. And yeah, here you can see what I used for that. Mainly acrylic paints and also a glue gun. And yeah, as you can see, I also put a piece of plastic on my table because I didn't want to get acrylic paint on my table, obviously. And what I did is just paint half of the eggs first and then leave them to dry, and yeah. And I left them to dry for about 20 minutes and then I painted the other half. At that point the acrylic paint is dry enough to touch it, so yeah. And then it's time to paint on the other details on the eggs. And yeah, on the chicken egg I started out by painting 2 blue eyes on it. And by the way, I used nail art brushes for this all, because I don't actually have any other brushes except for makeup brushes, and I obviously don't want to use those with acrylic paint. So yeah, I just use nail art brushes, works perfectly for it. And I used a small brush to paint the faces, of course. And outline the eyes in black. And also painted on the eyebrows, obviously. I know real chickens don't have eyebrows, but I don't know, I think when painting faces on something that doesn't usually have a face, it's just, I don't know, it looks nicer to have eyebrows on. It just gives more expression, I guess. And this chicken sort of got a cocky expression. Then the bunny or hare or whatever got green eyes. And I gave it a somewhat more friendly expression than the chicken. Just as regular eyebrows, and yeah. But of course you can just do the face however you want it to look. Also did the nose and mouth in black. And it's smiling, and I also gave it a little tooth in front. Well, 2 teeth actually, but at this point it still looks like one. And whiskers. And I decided to also outline the teeth because, I don't know, it just looks more defined, I guess. And actually, to my surprise, the sort of classical Easter egg was sort of the most difficult one to do. Like all the little stripes around it and everything. I don't know, it was to me the most difficult one. And beforehand I actually cut some shapes on a piece of orange paper, just, for the animal eggs. And while the faces of the eggs were drying, I just cut those out. And yeah, here you can see the beak of the chicken, and I folded it in a way that leaves a little flat part in the back, so I can later glue it on easily. And then I also have some ears for the rabbit and also feet for the chicken. And yeah, just really basic, easy shapes. Then to glue them on, I actually used a glue gun. I did look it up on Google beforehand if a glue gun was safe to use on eggs, but a lot of people do it, and my eggs didn't explode either. Yeah. So yeah, what I like about the glue gun is it dries very quickly, and you don't have to push onto the egg, because, I obviously didn't want to break the eggs. But you just gently squeeze it on, and then it just dries and stays in place. So I started out with the ears of the bunny, obviously. And then I went on to the feet of the chicken. Also, I glued it all on in a way that sort of hides the, as you can see, the pencil marks. Make sure to put those on the bottom so they're not visible from the top. Just looks slightly nicer. And then the little beak of the chicken. I folded it open a little bit, just looks more fun. And I also wanted to put a feather on it. I didn't have a yellow feather, so I used a green one instead for his tail. And then here's the normal egg. I did try to put some glitter on it, by the way, but it was sort of a fail, so I didn't show it. And the bunny egg. And then lastly the chicken egg. And then here's how they look on a Easter table, or at least part of it, in little egg holders. And as you can see, the legs of the little chicken just sort of fall over the edge cutely. Cutely, I don't think that's a word, but you get what I mean. Then on to the next part of the tutorial, which is the sort of breakfast pizza things. Not sure what to call them, but yeah, I'll just keep it at breakfast pizzas. Anyways, I just used 3 different types of bread, because me and my parents all like a different type of bread, so yeah. And I started out with a rabbit shape. It doesn't actually matter what sort of bread you use, by the way. I did actually use a, well, as you can see, a pretty sharp knife, like with a pointed knife. Just makes it easier to really, you know, carefully carve out the shape in the bread, because of course it's bread, so you can't tug on it too hard, because then it'll just tear apart. And yeah, I just started out with the basic shapes, and then just, you know, cleaned up the edges. Also, one important thing to do is to make sure there aren't any crusts of bread left on it, because later in the pan they will get very hard, which isn't very tasty. And yeah, the easiest shape to do, as always with Easter decorations, is the egg. Even though I'm sort of perfectionistic, but it's still the easiest thing to do. And then there's a little chicken. I did notice the white bread was a little bit more compact, so it's slightly easier to carve, but not a lot or anything, but yeah. On one hand it's easier to carve, on the other hand it's sort of more difficult to actually get the knife through, so I guess to each your own preferences. And then for the toppings, I used tomato and cheese at first. And again, just a really sharp knife. And I tried to cut the cheese in a way that would make it so that I could just sort of make a puzzle of it, you know, that it would just all fit nicely. And then I just grated some cheese. I have no idea how much it was, by the way. I don't know, I just did enough that I could easily fill up all the little breakfast pizzas. And that's what I then did. Basically just covered them completely in cheese, but I did try to actually really keep the shape in it. Like, you know, with the bunny ears and the little beak of the chicken. It's actually a very fun part of this entire tutorial. Just playing with food. And then obviously I also added the tomatoes, and as you can see here I sort of just tried to place them in a way that, you know, sort of really kept the shape of the bread beneath it, and that's how it looks then. Then for frying them I used a regular frying pan. I didn't add any oil to it, because oil will just make the bread go all soppy and not very tasty in my opinion. So I just did them dry, but they won't stick to the pan. And yeah, I have no idea how long I put them in. I just basically almost, like every few moments or so, I just check with the spatula whether or not the bottom is already crusty and not yet black. And at the point where they're crusty but not black, that's basically the point to take them out of the pan. As you can see me doing here. And then I also added a little bit of mayonnaise to each and every piece of tomato. And that's what they end up looking like. And then on to the last part of the tutorial, which is actually the table piece that you can see in the little clip with the 3 eggs on the table. So yeah, I used fake flowers and obviously fake chickens for that. chiclets, I think they're called. Yeah. Anyways, and little glass beads. And the glass I use as base, by the way, is an empty glass of a scented candle. Seeing as I'm using a glue gun for this, as usual, I did make sure to use a piece of glass, or just a glass that's actually, you know, capable of withstanding heat, because I didn't want to risk the glass breaking on me. But yeah, just covered the top of it with glue gun glue and then added little beads to that. And it doesn't need to be covered like completely, just, you know, like all the beads do need to touch the glue, of course. And then just carefully squeeze them on there, and then it looks like this. And from up close it looks like this. And then it's time to add the, well, not yet the flowers, but first pieces of just greenery. Basically I just pulled all the fake flowers apart, just, yeah, piece after piece. And then just carefully glue them all on. I started out with just the green parts, because this is the bottom of the glass and it's going to be mostly, you know, not very visible. So I just started out with 3 of them and then decided to fill in the rest later. Just, I don't know, I always just like to start with sort of a basic shape, I guess. And yeah, I just kept adding to it until the incomplete bottom of the glass was just completely filled and not yet visible anymore, because that's the entire idea. To just make sure that the glass isn't visible anymore. And then it looks like this. And what I also did is just put some glue on the glass and then just push the leaves against it where I think the glass isn't covered enough yet, like I do here. And as always, be careful with glue gun glue because it's hot. I actually burned my hand once while filming this, because of course I did. But yeah, and then I moved on to the flowers. And just as I did with the little pieces of greenery, I also just glued the petals on the glass. It also makes them more sturdy, because flowers are quite big, at least the ones I use, so yeah. And I just used multiple colors of flowers. You can also just use one shade, of course, or just 2 shades, but I decided to just go for random colors. I don't know, with flowers I always prefer to just use random colors most of the time. Especially with something like Easter, just, I don't know, it looks nice. Springtime-ish, yeah. So I just added all the flowers one by one. And once that all was on there, I also added a second layer of flowers, because this is what it looks like now. As you can see, the parts of green on the bottom are pretty much, you know, not really invisible or anything. I mean, it's good that they're there because they do cover the glass, but they're not very obviously there. And yes, I said, then I just did the second layer of flowers. I didn't glue the petals of the second layer of flowers onto the glass, because obviously the glass was, you know, not high enough to do that. And then the flowers just sort of encircle the part with the glass beads. And I also, on 2 parts where there was less space, I also just added a piece of only green stuff without the flower on it, as you can see here. And then that's what it looks like at this point. And then it's time to add the chiclets. I used 3 small chiclets and then 1 large chiclet in the middle. You can also use fake bunnies or, you know, more fake flowers, whatever you want to use really. So I just put them some glue on their feet and then just put them on there in a very gravity defying manner. Yeah. You can also use different colors of chiclets, but I decided to just go for yellow ones because I already used a lot of different colors of flowers, so yeah. Just thought it'd be a bit too busy otherwise. And then this is how this ended up looking. Very spring-like, lots of colors. It's just something I really like. And yes, you can see the glass is entirely covered with flowers. And then here's the final result. Just a very easy and quick Easter breakfast table. Of course you can always add more stuff to it, but you know, I just wanted to show you something basic that can just quickly be done to turn, you know, a nice breakfast into an Easter themed breakfast. So I hope this video was useful to some of you who might still be looking for Easter ideas. In any case, I hope you enjoyed watching this. Thank you very much for watching as usual. And yeah, that was pretty much it for today. Bye! The glue had cooled down. You can also use nail polish if you want glitter or something. But yeah, for this I don't know, with autumn and Easter things I just